The first morning I broke a rule. The truck wouldn't start until I apologized out loud to the empty cab. I want you to understand how that sounds before I tell you the rest, because I know exactly how it sounds. I have a community college certificate in diesel mechanics. I know what a dead battery does, what a bad starter relay does, what a clogged fuel filter does. None of those things make an engine turn over the instant you say the word sorry into a vehicle with no one in it. But that's what happened, and by then I'd already learned that the route had its own logic, and that the logic did not care whether I believed in it. Let me back up, because if I just keep listing the things that happened, you'll think I'm sick. And maybe I am, but not in the way you're imagining. I took the job because I was 3 months behind on rent, and the temp agency had nothing left except the things nobody else wanted. Overnight sanitation for a contractor that handled the industrial corridor on the far north edge of the city, out past where the street lights thin, and then stop entirely. The pay was almost double standard route work, and when something pays double for the same labor, you should ask why, but I didn't ask. I had a daughter staying with my sister and a number I needed to hit by the end of the month. And a number is a powerful thing. It makes you stop asking questions you can't afford the answers to. The yard was a low cinder block building with a corrugated roof, surrounded by chain link and parked rigs. My supervisor was a woman named Delphine, who must have been close to 60, with forearms like a longshoreman and a voice worn down to gravel by decades of cigarettes she no longer smoked. She didn't shake my hand. She looked at me the way a farmer looks at livestock, assessing, and then she said, "You sleep during the day?" I told her I could. She said, "Good. The corridor's a night route. Everything we do happens between 11 and 5. She didn't say why. I assumed it was traffic or heat, or the factories. I assumed wrong, but that came later. She walked me out to the rig I'd be running, an older side loader with the company name sanded off the door and repainted over so many times the paint had a topography to it. She handed me a laminated card, the kind you'd see zip-tied to a forklift, except this one was hand-typed, and the lamination had yellowed at the corners. 6 lines. She tapped it once against my chest. "Read these tonight before you roll out," she said. "Read them every night. Doesn't matter how long you work here. The day you think you've got them memorized is the day you get sloppy. And sloppy is how people leave this job in a way that doesn't involve quitting." I looked down at the card. I thought it was a joke. The first line read, "Do not acknowledge anything that calls you by your full name." I laughed. Just a small one. More breath than sound. Delphine didn't laugh. She didn't get angry either. She just watched me until the laugh died in my throat, and then she said, "Your partner's name is Royce. He's been on the corridor 11 years. Do everything he tells you exactly when he tells you, and you'll be fine." She paused. "Royce is careful. There's a reason he's still here and the man before you isn't." I should have asked what happened to the man before me. I wanted on the record that the thought occurred to me, and I let it go. Because the rent was due, and a question like that has weight. And I was tired of carrying things. Royce was already in the cab when I climbed up that first night. Mid-40s maybe, lean, with the kind of stillness you see in people who've spent years doing something that punishes sudden movement. He had a thermos between his knees and a paper map of the corridor folded into a square on the dash, even though the rig had GPS. I'd learned the GPS didn't always agree with the corridor, and that when they disagreed, you trusted the paper. "You read the card?" he said, not looking at me. "Yeah, out loud?" "No." He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd suspected. Read it out loud. Right now. So I did, feeling like an idiot, my voice flat under the diesel rattle. 1. Do not acknowledge anything that calls you by your full name. 2. Between the rail bridge and the water tower, do not let the truck stop moving. If you stall, keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes forward until it moves again. 3. If a resident leaves bags out after midnight, take them. Do not look inside. Do not count them. 4. The blue house on the cul-de-sac gets serviced last, every night, even when there's nothing out. Knock twice on the can. Wait for 2 knocks back before you take it. 5. If your partner tells you to get back in the truck, get back in the truck. Do not finish what you're doing. 6. You will sometimes see a crew working the opposite side of the street. Do not wave. Do not match their pace. Do not let them finish the route before you do. When I finished, Royce took a slow sip from his thermos. Good, he said. Now you've said them out loud once. That counts for something out here. The corridor likes things said out loud. Don't ask me why. I stopped asking a long time ago. I want to tell you I felt fear in that moment. I didn't. I felt embarrassed. The secondhand embarrassment of being the new guy in a workplace with weird hazing rituals like the kitchens that make you fetch a left-handed whisk. I figured the rules were a tradition, a story the old hands told to mess with the temps, dressed up in laminate to make it stick. I clipped the card to the visor, and we rolled out. The first 3 hours were just work. Hard, repetitive, honest work. The corridor was a long grid of warehouses and aging row houses where the factory workers used to live. Half of them empty now, windows like missing teeth. The side loader's arm groaned each time it lifted a can, and the smell was the smell of all garbage everywhere, sweet and rotten and chemical. My shoulders found the rhythm. Royce drove, and I worked the cans the arm couldn't reach, hopping down, hauling, hopping back up. He talked a little. He had a daughter, too, grown now, out west. He asked about mine without prying. He was, I want to be clear, a completely normal man doing a completely normal job, and that is what made everything that came after so hard to dismiss. Around 2 a.m, we hit the stretch. Between the rail bridge and the water tower, I felt the change before I understood it. The radio, which had been playing some overnight call-in show at the edge of reception, dropped into silence so cleanly it was like a hand closing over the speaker. Not static. Silence. Royce reached over and put both hands on the wheel and sat up straighter. This part, he said quietly, you stay in the cab. Whatever's out there, waits till we're past. The road under the bridge was narrow and the rig slowed to a crawl. The headlights pushed against the dark, and the dark pushed back, and then with no warning, the engine sputtered. The whole truck shuddered. We were stalling. Royce's voice didn't change. Hands on the dash, eyes forward, don't look at the mirrors. Of course I looked at the mirrors. You always look at the thing they tell you not to look at. That's just human. And I'd like to think I've been punished enough for it that I don't have to defend it. In the passenger mirror, in the red wash of the running lights, I saw the road behind us, and standing in the middle of it, maybe 30 feet back, was a figure. A man, I thought, in coveralls like ours, with the reflective stripes catching the light. He was perfectly still. He had no face that I could make out, just a paleness, where a face should be, and he was facing us, and as I watched, he tilted his head. Not like a person curious about something, like something practicing the gesture of curiosity. The engine caught. The truck lurched forward. I snapped my eyes to the windshield and kept them there, and I realized my whole body had gone cold and slick under the coveralls. When we cleared the water tower, the radio came back, mid-sentence, a man laughing about a baseball score. Royce exhaled and loosened his grip on the wheel, one finger at a time. "You looked," he said. It wasn't a question. "There was a guy back there, in the road." "There's always a guy back there," Royce said. "He can't do anything as long as the truck keeps moving and you don't answer him. He'll try to get you to answer him. That's rule 1 and rule 2, and they're the same rule, really, just 2 ways of breaking it." He glanced at me for the first time in an hour. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing. He didn't say anything." Royce went very quiet. Then, "He will, now that he's seen you look. He will." I'd like to pause here and tell you that I went home that morning and quit. I didn't. Here's the truth that I'm not proud of. I went home and I slept. And when I woke up, I checked my bank account and the day's pay had posted, and it was real money. More money than I'd made in a single shift in years. And I had a daughter who needed shoes and a sister who was tired of carrying my share. So I told myself I'd seen a homeless man under a bridge and let my nerves do the rest. I told myself Royce was a superstitious old hand, and the rules were a coping mechanism, a way to make a dangerous neighborhood feel manageable. I told myself a lot of things. The mind is very good at building a house you can live in. I went back the next night and the night after, and for a while the rules became routine. The way anything becomes routine, even fear. The blue house on the cul-de-sac was the strangest of the comfortable strangenesses. Every night, last stop, Royce would pull up to a small house at the end of a dead-end street. A house with siding the color of a faded summer sky and curtains always drawn, and a single porch light that never turned off and never seemed to attract a single moth. There was a green city-issue can at the foot of the driveway. Royce would have me get down, walk up, and knock twice on the lid, then wait. And after a moment, always, there would be 2 knocks back from inside the can, and only then would I roll it to the truck. "Who lives there?" I asked, the 3rd or 4th night. "Nobody lives there," Royce said. "Somebody's there. That's different." The can was always light. Whatever was in it when I tipped it into the hopper made no sound. I never looked. Rule 3 said don't look inside the bags, and I'd extended that in my own mind to cover the whole blue house, because some part of me that was smarter than the rest had decided I did not want to know. The crew on the opposite side of the street I saw for the first time about 2 weeks in. We were working a long, straight block of row houses, and across the street, moving the same direction, was another sanitation crew. Same coveralls, same reflective stripes. A truck like ours. But I couldn't read the markings. Couldn't quite focus on it. The way you can't focus on the edges of a dream. 2 men working the cans. They moved exactly as we moved, lifting when we lifted, walking when we walked, and they were keeping pace with us perfectly, can for can. "Don't look at them," Royce said low. "Work faster. We finish the block first, always." So we worked faster and they worked faster, matching us, and there was a horrible feeling building in my chest that we were in a race we did not understand the stakes of. We got to the end of the block, 1 can ahead. The other crew stopped at their last can, and one of the men straightened up and looked across the street at me and lifted his hand. Not a wave. He just raised it, palm out, and held it there. And every instinct I had wanted to raise mine back the way you do, the reflexive politeness of one tired worker to another at 3 a.m. Royce's hand closed hard around my wrist before I'd even realized my arm was moving. "No," he said. Just that. He didn't let go until we were back in the cab and rolling. "What happens if you wave back?" I asked. My voice came out thinner than I wanted. "You ever notice," Royce said, pulling away, "that there's only ever one crew on the corridor at a time? Us. There's a reason we don't hire 2 trucks a night even when we're behind. The corridor only has room for one crew." He let that sit. "If you wave back, you've told the other one you're the same as them. And if you let them finish first, you've agreed they're the real ones." He turned onto the next street. "I've watched a man wave back. Once. 11 years ago, there was a crew of 2 on the corridor the next night, and I wasn't on either of them, and the temp agency had no record of the guy who trained me." He shook his head slowly. "Delphine kept me. I don't know why she kept me. That was the night I stopped telling myself stories. That was the night the house my mind had built came down, quietly, all at once, and left me standing in the cold of the actual situation. The rules were real. They were not a tradition. They were the terms of survival, written by people who had learned them the hard way, for people who would otherwise learn them the same way. The thing that calls you by your full name found me in the 4th week." We were under the rail bridge again. The radio cut out. The truck did not stall this time, but it slowed, the way it always slowed, as if the road itself thickened. And from somewhere out in the dark beyond the headlights, in a voice I knew, a voice that was my daughter's voice, small and frightened, I heard my full name. First, middle, and last. The way only my mother had ever said it, and my mother was 8 years dead. I cannot describe to you what that does to the body. The name went into me like a hook. Every part of me that was a father turned toward that sound before any part of me that was sane could stop it. My mouth opened. Royce's elbow caught me in the ribs, hard enough to knock the breath out of me, hard enough that the only sound I made was a grunt of pain instead of an answer. "Eyes forward," he said through his teeth. "It's not her. It's never who it sounds like. It learns the voice that'll make you answer. It's been studying you since the night you looked." The voice came again, closer, just outside my window now. My daughter's voice saying my whole name, and then, "Daddy, please, I'm right here. Why won't you look at me? And I want you to understand that I have never wanted anything in my life the way I wanted to turn my head." I sat on my hands. I bit down until I tasted copper. I stared at the windshield and the slowly passing dark. And I shook, and Royce drove. And beside the truck, keeping pace, just below the window where I couldn't quite see it without looking down, something walked on too many joints and breathed my daughter's breath. We cleared the water tower. The radio came back. I leaned over and threw up between my boots, and Royce didn't say anything about it, just handed me a rag from the door pocket like he'd handed it to other men before. "It knows your weak spot now," he said when I could sit up. "It'll use her every night. You have to get to where the name doesn't reach you. I don't know how to teach you that. Either you get there or you don't." I called my sister that morning before I slept and asked to talk to my daughter, just to hear her actual voice, to overwrite the thing's imitation with the real one. She was eating cereal and annoyed to be pulled from her cartoon, and she said, "Hi, Dad, bye, Dad," in the bored sing-song of a kid who has somewhere better to be. and it was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard because it was hers, and ordinary and alive. I went back that night. I'll always wonder about that, what it says about me that I went back. But the money was real and she was real, and I was in some way I couldn't articulate, getting better at it. I was learning the corridor. And there's a pride in that, even in something like that, the pride of the worker who has mastered a dangerous craft. Maybe that's what the corridor counts on. Maybe pride is just another voice that calls you by your name. Things were stable for almost 2 months. I don't mean safe. I mean, I knew the shape of the danger and I stayed inside the lines. The name called for me every night under the bridge. And every night I let it pass unanswered. And it got easier, the way the worst things do. The blue house knocked back twice every night, and I rolled its weightless can to the hopper without looking. The opposite crew appeared maybe twice a week, and we always finished first, and I never raised my hand. I started to understand Royce's stillness. I started to develop it myself. Then Delphine put a third man on our truck, and everything I understood broke. His name was Patrick, a young guy, 22, fresh from the temp agency the way I'd been. Delphine assigned him to ride with us to learn the corridor before they put him on his own route, which should have told me something, because there were no other routes. But I'd stopped questioning the things that didn't add up. Patrick was a good kid. Talked too much. The way you do when you're nervous and young. He had a girlfriend and a plan, and a tattoo he regretted. He read the card out loud his first night because Royce made him, and he laughed at it the way I had. And Royce and I exchanged a look over his head that contained 11 years and 2 months of knowledge, and not one word of it sayable. I tried to teach him the way Royce had taught me. Patient, exact. But Patrick was the kind of person who needed to understand why before he could believe. And the corridor doesn't offer why. It only offers consequences. He humored the rules without respecting them. And that distinction is the whole difference between the men who stay and the men who don't. The night it happened, we were working the long block, and the opposite crew appeared. 3 of them now. They'd matched our number. I felt the wrongness of it climb up my spine. 3 men across the street working our pace, can for can, and the third one was new. And even though I knew not to look directly, I caught in the corner of my vision that the third figure was thin and young, and moved with a nervous energy I recognized. And I did not want to recognize it. Faster, Royce said. We finish first. Patrick, God help him, was curious. Who are those guys? Is that another contractor? Why don't we? Don't look at them, I said. Don't talk about them. Work. We were almost to the end of the block, half a can ahead, when Patrick dropped a bag. It split. Garbage spilled across the sidewalk, and Patrick, being a conscientious kid, being the kind of person you'd want as a neighbor, crouched down to clean it up. We were going to lose the block. I could see it. The opposite crew was drawing even. Leave it, Royce said. Patrick, get back in the truck. That was Rule 5. If your partner tells you to get back in the truck, get back in the truck. Do not finish what you're doing. And Patrick, who needed to understand why, who had been humoring us for 2 weeks, who saw an old man and a tired man telling him to leave a mess on the sidewalk for no reason he could see, said, just give me 1 second. The opposite crew finished their block. I felt it happen. The air changed pressure. The 3 figures across the street straightened up in unison and turned, all 3, to face us, and the new one, the thin young one, raised his hand, palm out. And Patrick crouched on the sidewalk with garbage in his hands, looked up across the street at the crew that had just won, and saw the figure with its hand raised, And Patrick being friendly, being 22, being someone who waved at people who waved at him. "Patrick!" Royce roared, the only time I ever heard him raise his voice. "Do not!" Patrick waved back. It was such a small gesture. Just a hand, lifted, the most natural thing in the world. And then Patrick stood up and brushed off his knees, and I watched the recognition drain out of his face and something else move in behind his eyes, something patient and old, and only wearing the shape of curiosity. He looked at me. He looked at Royce. And he smiled. And it was Patrick's mouth, but it was not Patrick's smile. And he turned and walked across the street to join the crew of 3. And they became a crew of 4. And they walked off into the dark in perfect step. And the corridor on our side of the street felt suddenly terribly empty, like a stage after the actors have left. Royce sat with both hands on the wheel for a long time and the radio played. Finally he said, "Get the bag," he dropped. His voice was dead. "We still have to finish the block. We're a man down now and the corridor knows it. We finish first or there's 2 crews tomorrow and one of them isn't us." I got out. My legs barely held me. I picked up the spilled garbage with my bare hands because I'd left my gloves in the cab and I couldn't make myself walk back for them. And as I crouched there, on the sidewalk where Patrick had crouched, I heard from across the street, in Patrick's voice, cheerful and young, "It's not bad over here. You should come over. It's not bad." I did not look up. I finished the block. We finished first. We had 1 stop left, the Blue House. I want to tell you what happened at the Blue House that night, because it is the part I have told no one. The part I am only telling you, because I think I am running out of nights to tell it and someone should know. Royce wouldn't get out of the truck. He'd gone gray and old all at once, 11 years catching up to him in an hour. "You knock," he said. "I can't tonight. I just buried a kid and I can't." So I walked up the dead-end street alone to the house the color of a faded sky, with its porch light that drew no moths and its curtains always drawn, and I knocked twice on the green can and nothing knocked back. I waited. The rule was wait for 2 knocks back. I knocked again, twice. Nothing. The silence stretched and the porch light buzzed, and somewhere far off a train moved across the rail bridge. And I knew, the way you know things in dreams, that the corridor was a man down and the count was off, and the Blue House knew it too and was waiting to see what I would do. And then the front door of the Blue House opened. It had never opened. In all the nights, it had never once opened. It opened now, slowly, and warm yellow light spilled out across the dead grass. And standing in the doorway was a figure I could not quite resolve, a person-shaped warmth. And it said, in a voice that was kind, that was the kindest voice I have ever heard, a voice like every safe place I have ever wanted to lie down in. "You've had a hard night. You did everything right. Come inside and rest. You don't have to go back to the truck. You've earned a rest. Come in." And here's the thing about Rule 4 that I had never understood until that moment. The thing the card never said. It was the last stop every night. The reward at the end. The thing that knocks back twice to tell you it's still polite, still keeping the arrangement, still pretending you and it are doing business. The Blue House was never a chore. It was the door at the end, and every night I'd rolled its empty can to the truck. I'd been refusing an invitation without knowing one had been offered. I had been awake for 22 hours. I had just watched a boy walk into the dark in pieces. My arms ached, and my heart ached. And the voice in the doorway knew all of it, knew it better than I did. And the light behind it was so warm, and I was so tired, and it was not calling me by my name. That was the trick of it. Rule 1 taught you to fear the thing that knew your name. But the blue house didn't need your name. It offered you rest. And there is no man alive who isn't hungry for that. I took a step toward the door. I want to be honest. I took one full step. Behind me, the truck's horn blasted once, long and flat, and Royce's voice came ragged across the dead-end street. Get back in the truck. Rule 5. The only rule with a person attached to it. And some part of me that had spent 2 months learning to obey that exact sentence turned my body around before my mind had finished wanting to stay. And I walked back down the driveway, and I did not finish what I was doing. And behind me, I heard the door of the blue house close, gently, without anger. The way a patient thing closes a door it knows it will get to open again. I got in the truck. Royce pulled away. Neither of us spoke until we cleared the corridor and the street lights started up again. And the ordinary world resumed like it had never been interrupted. It never opened for me, Royce said finally in the gray almost dawn. 11 years. The can knocks back, I take it, I leave. It's never opened the door for me. He looked at me and there was something in his face I hadn't seen before. Something that might have been fear and might have been grief. It opens when the count's off. When the corridor's owed a man. It opened for the guy before you and he went in. That's what happened to him. That's the thing I never told you. He gripped the wheel. It opened for you tonight. The corridor thinks it's owed you because we're a man down and you finished his work. It'll keep opening now, every night. It'll be the kindest thing you ever heard, and it'll never call you by your name. And one night, you'll be tired enough. I quit the next morning. I told Delphine I was done. She looked at me with those farmer's eyes, and she didn't argue. She just said, it had opened the door, didn't it? Not a question. And then she said the thing I think about every night now, the thing that means I'm writing this down for whoever takes the job after me, because somebody always takes the job, the money is too good, and there's always a man 3 months behind on rent. She said, it doesn't matter that you quit. Once the door's opened for you, the corridor's patient. It'll wait. It knows where you live now. The blue house can be any house. Once it's got your measure, you'll be lying in your own bed some night, dead tired, and you'll hear a knock. 2 knocks, and the kindest voice you ever heard will tell you, you've earned your rest. That was 4 months ago. I have a normal job now, days in a warehouse with fluorescent lights and a time clock, and not one strange rule on the wall. My daughter lives with me again. I am by every visible measure a man who got out. But 3 nights ago, very late, I woke with no reason to be awake, and the house was dark and still. And from somewhere below me, from the front door, or maybe just from inside the walls, I heard it, 2 knocks. And I lay there in the dark, with my heart going, and I did not get up, and I did not answer. And after a while, it stopped. I know the rule. Wait for 2 knocks back, and only then is it safe to proceed. The arrangement runs both ways. As long as I never knock back, the business between us isn't done and the door stays closed. So I lie awake now, most nights, listening, and the knocking comes and I hold still and I keep my hands flat on the mattress and my eyes on the ceiling, and I do not knock back, and I do not knock back, and I do not knock back. But I am so tired, and the voice, when it comes through the door, is so very kind, and it has never once, not on any night, called me by my name.